Welcome, Fantasyland. We are back again, and we are trying a. Oh, it looks like we're live, guys. You know what? Well, why not? Let's just do it. Let's just do it live. Why not? So, Dan, before we get to our guests, it's different doing visual because I can't even tease the audience. They just see him on there. But I got to ask you about your trip, man. You were out there in the wilderness with the girls last week, and I want to hear a bit about it.
Yeah, so it was a little bit shorter trip than usual in amount of time. Still went a pretty good distance. We went about 45 miles down a river that's fairly wildish. There's some cabins along the way and things like that. But for the most part, when you're on the river, you're on your own. Campsites few and far between. Whatever you have with you or whatever you bring is what you have. I mean, there's no anything, at the campsites or anything like that. I mean, you've no electricity, no nothing. So, if you want it, you brought it with you. Some couple heavy duty portages to start in the trip. We had a mile one pretty early into the trip and one that was about 3/4 of a mile later in the trip. And it was, the weather was not great. We had a lot of rain and some pretty good wind too. So it was a little bit more of a challenge than we were hoping for, but it was still fun. There's nothing better than spending 5 days with my girls, and they love the challenge of it. So we had a great time despite that.
Nice. Glad you guys made it back and had a good time despite the weather. One of these guys has been on now a few times. I think Bobby's been on. You've been on what, a couple times now, Bobby?
I'm not quite at the 5 timers club yet, which I've got into a few other podcasts. I still need a few more times before I get that jacket. I'm waiting on it.
I think you automatically get a badge sent to you when that happens. I'm pretty sure we have that set up somehow.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time. I know the lady's not feeling that well tonight, so we appreciate you taking a bit of time with us and squeezing us in. And we bring your buddy in. You told me that you're not a zookeeper, but you're kind of the zookeeper on the Superflex, right? So
Matt has actually been a zookeeper for a long time, so I don't feel appropriate taking that title. If he wants to call me an honorary zookeeper, I guess I'll accept it. I will say one thing from that show is I've learned a lot of random animal facts because I actually pay attention when Matt talks, believe it or not. And so I'll be watching like Jeopardy and something will come up about like okapis, for example, and I'll be able to answer it. And my family's like, where did he learn that? I'll be like, well, kind of a weird story, but I host a podcast with a senior zookeeper at the San Diego Zoo. And then they're just like, okay, that's weird, but cool that you're learning.
Yeah, no. And that's kind of the parallel I was going to make. I know he's the actual zookeeper. And Mr. Matt Price, welcome to the Goat District, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Bobby, I did say that you could be the honorary zookeeper, but then today I was thinking about it. And I remembered how you're afraid of basically every single animal on the planet. So I think not being afraid of animals is probably a prerequisite. So I might have to strip you of that title, unfortunately.
That's completely fair. I think that if you tried to get me to feed anything larger than a dog, I'd probably just run away. So
that's awesome, man. Bobby, I know last time you came on, you were kind of in transition career-wise. So I just want to check in and see how the new gig's going.
Yeah, it's going really well. I was saying this to one of my friends the other day. Believe it or not, there are companies out there that actually treat their employees well. It's shocking. I have never had that experience before. Hopefully, I doubt anyone from my old job actually listens to this, but if you do, you probably know what I'm talking about. Most of you are not there anymore anyway. So yeah, it's great. And I'm really happy to be in the new position. And it's nice to see all the work that I put in grad school pay off. Maybe one day I'll be able to afford a car as nice as Dan's. If you haven't seen Dan's car, just make sure you check that out.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like coming out of that relationship where you weren't treating so well, and then you find that person that is on the other end of the spectrum, and you maybe appreciate it a bit more. So I'm glad to see that you're back on track and feeling appreciated. Matt, I didn't give you the proper intro, man. I told you earlier, just hearing your voice to me, there's like a comfort almost to it because I've listened to you for so long, and you are the DLF senior writer. over there on one of my favorite sites and a host of one of my favorite podcasts with regards to the DLF Dynasty podcast. And it's kind of like what I told Izzy when he came on, and JP, you guys, are kind of the inspiration behind the GOAT District, because I'd finish the pod at the Epi, and I'd be like, man, I want to hear more. I want to hear more about player value and trades and all the good stuff. So appreciate you coming on tonight and taking time with us as well.
Yeah, that's really nice of you to say. I have a very hard time accepting praise in general, so I appreciate it. I feel like I'm still nobody in this industry. I'm just happy to be in the room where it all happens and get to talk to Dan and Ryan every week. Ryan obviously is he is Dynasty Fantasy Football, right? So to be able to have the access to him and really to be able to call him a friend at this point has been really awesome. So I appreciate all the kind words, though.
Bobby, I'm going to go back to you, because I heard recently, I don't know if it was on the Superflex that I heard it, but you recently dropped Pop and Juice, which are two things that I just probably haven't had in a couple of decades. But how's that going for you, man?
Wow, we're really just getting into the entire details of our personal lives, huh? I guess at this point I should also note that I am closing on a house on Monday, so now everyone just knows exactly what's going on.
Nice.
We just need access to your latest physical, please.
Bank account info.
It's going pretty well. I've since we're getting nice and personal here, I've dropped 8 pounds since the beginning of July, so nice. I'm pretty happy with that. And yeah, it was just one of those things that speaking of the job and the house and whatever, I'd reached a bunch of other personal goals of mine, and I've been talking for years about getting in better physical shape, but just kind of kept putting it off. But it remained one of the few goals that it felt like, okay, I haven't accomplished this yet, and I've accomplished a bunch of others. Probably time to dedicate some time. I will say, growing up the son of a baker who my mom owned a bakery for 20 years, it's really hard to give up dessert and sugar. And so the first week or so was rough, but since then I've been doing pretty well, and appreciate you asking.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I found it interesting, because I always think, for someone who wants something that's not, it's easy for me to say it's not difficult, but it's kind of a small step that you can take, is eliminating the juices and the pops, and it makes a pretty significant difference. So I thought that was interesting. Since we're getting personal, I got one more for Matt. I want to know, from 1 to 10, like, how scared are you to have a new roommate, buddy, coming in?
Yeah, here we go. Personal information there. Yeah, my girlfriend of about a year now is moving in. Just kind of worked out timing wise, where her landlord is selling her house and my roommate's lease is up. So we're taking the jump. I'm excited, but certainly nervous about it. Before the roommate, I lived by myself for a while, and that was really nice. And it seems like that's not going to happen again anytime soon. But no, I'm really excited about it. I'm kind of crazy about her, so I'm excited, but nervous. It's a big step, man.
For sure.
Can I just jump in real quick and say that I'm happy that Matt's doing this, because I got the opportunity to meet his girlfriend, and if he messed this up, I probably would have had to fire him from our show, because it would have shown horrible decision making.
I know what lie I need to tell that now if I ever want to get out of that show.
That was one of the most roundabout compliments I've ever heard.
All right, I got a quick animal question for you guys before we get into the goodness. And if you guys have said this, recently somewhere and I just haven't heard it, I apologize. But I'll go to Matt first, since you are the zookeeper. What's your favorite animal, if you have one?
It's hard. I love, most animals, but I guess if I had to pick an absolute favorite, it would be polar bears. That's kind of the species that, as a young kid, really made me want to work with animals. I've gotten to do that now for about a decade, and they're awesome. But I love lots of stuff too. I love the ones that are lesser known, like tapirs. Not many people know a lot about tapirs. They're probably my favorite herbivore animal. I'm working with some Maine wolves right now that are really awesome. So I like most of them, but if I had to pick one, probably polar bears.
It's funny you mentioned that, because when I was a kid, that was I don't know what it is with kids and polar bears, but that was my go-to when I was a young child. Bobby, how about you, man?
So, I love dogs, but I know that's not the answer you're looking for, because I always say on our show, non-domestic animals, because dogs have always been a huge part of my life. It's going to be a boring answer, but much like you guys, when I was a kid, I had a polar bear toy, and I actually made a cape for it, and I called it Super Bear. and I flew it into another kid's diorama because it was a cave, and I thought, oh, this makes sense, and then I destroyed their diorama. So just a quick backstory there. But I've always kind of loved polar bears, and like Matt, I didn't go into zookeeping because of it, but I have donated to charities related to helping polar bears, and now that's extended out to more just in general extinct or going extinct animals.
Dan, you're gonna make this like a sweep with the polar bear, or what?
Can I say polar bear?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's tough for me to pick a favorite. I mean, I've always enjoyed almost all the animals. I mean, I've enjoyed learning about them. I love going to zoos. It's something that interested me, like most other kids. You want to find out about the cool animals and all that. And it always seemed to me like Africa had the most cool animals. And then, if you start looking at the animals in North America without with the idea that you'd never seen these things before, you realize we have just as many cool animals as Africa. It's just that we're used to them. But my favorite is probably right now, I would say the moose, just because it's such a symbol of the area I love. Northern Minnesota, Ontario.
Good old Canadian boy, Dan.
When you see moose, you're north, and they're a little bit more sensitive to the environment than a lot of people give them credit for. So they're also a little bit of a telltale for the hey, there you go, Paul Bunyan. So also, a little bit. Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say they're also really rare. Not really rare, but they're fairly rare in zoos as well. One of my best friends is a VP of animal operations at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo in Colorado, which is an incredible zoo, maybe my favorite zoo I've ever been to. It's up on a mountain. The views are just incredible. But his job last week was to drive to Alaska to pick up an 8-week-old moose and then drive it back to Colorado, and has been bottle feeding it for the last couple of weeks and stuff like that. So, moose are awesome.
That's actually a good point. Yeah, you don't really see them often in a zoo. That's a really good point. Yep. All right, guys, let's get into the goodness. We got personal. We talked animals. We talked about Dan's trip. We went around the globe there. So,
well, real quick, JD, I did have something to say about Dan's trip. He took that trip because he wanted to make sure his girls saw him at least one last time and respected him. Because once they see him in jorts, it's over.
Well, if you've seen my camping clothes, the jorts are probably a step up from that.
I should have kept the air horn for that one.
I'm just going to say, they've probably seen worse.
That sounds like an awesome trip, though, Dan. I'm a big hiker camper too. I've never done it with canoeing, though. That sounds incredible. I have a Jeep, so I like to drive out in the middle of nowhere. Like, to me, camping is not. I mean, there's definitely a place for camping in like a campground with a bunch of people and drinking and loud music and stuff. But for me, camping is to drive out where there's nobody else and just kind of be by yourself in nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so much fun.
So, as we get into the goodness, last week we had the red shirt guys on here, Matt, Betts, and Okada. Go back and listen to it. A lot of great information on injuries and tight ends. And initially, Dan and I talked, and we were looking at doing positions. But so I'm going to tie it in with the tight end, because I do want to talk to Matt about an article he recently dropped. And then we'll get into a receiver, but we're not going to limit it to position this week, just because I feel like we have a nice mix with our guests, and I don't want to limit the discussion. So I'm going to start with you, Matt. We had Dave Richard from CBS on here, and he was a big fan of this offense out in Denver. And I know myself, Fant is, I'll let you talk about your article, but I read it, and it articulates really well how I feel about the player. So, let the people know where they can find it, because you put out some amazing material. This is one example of it. It's a great article out there on DLF. And let the people know maybe what conclusion you came to with the article.
Yeah, this is a new series that DLF started putting out recently. I think there's maybe two or three more in addition to mine on Noah Fant. And basically, we're just talking about if we think this particular player is going to break out in 2020 or if he's a kind of a fake out and, maybe not quite worth the price. And I guess I'll start with the spoiler alert, I guess. And that's that I think he is a fake out for a few different reasons. I definitely like the player. He was my tight end 1 last year in that rookie class, just over TJ Hawkinson. And I probably prefer him a little bit over Hawkinson, just because of health issues and some other things with Hawk. But I do think he's a fake out, mostly because of the offense that he's in and the players around him. So the kind of the hypothesis for this article, and I kind of made an arbitrary cutoff because you got to make a cutoff somewhere. And I've always kind of felt like, and I think the numbers bear out, that to be a back half tight end 1 is really not that impressive, right? You can find these back half tight end 1s anywhere. If you catch one pass for a touchdown, you're probably going to be a back half tight end 1 on the week, right? So for this particular article, a categorization was if Noah Fant is going to be called a breakout in 2020, he needs to finish as a top 6 tight end. And I just can't see that happening with the weapons they have there. We still have questions about Drew Lock, who's a great deep ball thrower, but he doesn't really hit those short intermediate passes very well, which is weird. It seems like those should be the easier thing for a quarterback to do, right? But for some reason he struggled with that in his first season. And that's where a lot of the targets for the tight ends are going to go. Fant does have the athleticism to get deep, and he showed that last year, absolutely. So he could have that if he catches a few long touchdowns, and he could absolutely be a top 6 tight end next year. But just looking at the last 4 seasons of data of what we've seen from tight ends, it doesn't really seem like Fant can get there because out of 24 total opportunities over the last 4 seasons to be a top 6 tight end, 67% or 16 of them led their team in targets, and then an additional 29% or 7 were second on their team in targets. And then, just 4% or 1 tight end, Austin Hooper, was outside of the top 2 targets to finish as a top 6 tight end. And with the addition of Jerry Jeudy, I cannot see Fant eclipsing Jerry Jeudy in targets, even in a rookie season where he's going to be compromised with the COVID situation and not getting into the game plan and all that noise. But I can't see them not wanting to get him a heavy dose of targets. Last season, Fant was second on the team in targets, but it was, a far cry from what Cortland Sutton had. It was 120-ish targets, I believe, and Fant was in the mid 60s. So while he had that, there was literally nobody else to really catch the ball. Deshaun Hamilton was a disappointment. All the tight ends they have drafted before him were disappointments, right? Moved on from Emmanuel Sanders. So he was literally only the only second target they had. And then if you want to stretch out a little bit more, I think that Albert O is a little bit underrated. Obviously, a very athletic tight end in his own right. Has a connection, played with Drew Lock in college, where he caught, I think, was 17 touchdowns over the 2 seasons with him. So he's absolutely a touchdown threat, and could be that in year 1 if they're able to kind of restore that chemistry. So Fant can lose some touchdowns from there. He's going to lose targets for Jeudy. He's, in my opinion, I think he's at best 3rd in the pecking order for targets. And, I think you can make a case for Melvin Gordon in there somewhere as well, a very good receiving back. So based on his price right now, which is tight end 7 in July ADP, this is dynasty, right? So he doesn't have to hit a top 6 tight end next season necessarily, but his situation is not going to change, right? If Drew Lock is good, then sure, he'll be there. But if he's not, we're going to be starting with another new quarterback, and Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, they're not going anywhere. So I just don't see him being able to hit that threshold of being either the top receiver of targets in that offense, or the second most targets on offense for really, basically the entire rookie contract, right? So for me, paying a tight end 7 price for Noah Fant is just a little bit too much.
Yeah, if I had referred to my notes when I asked you that question, that's what I would have focused in on. I loved how you approached it with regards to what pecking order they are on their rightful team with regards to targets. And that's something that I think sometimes we miss when we're looking at some of these guys and what their upside can be, right? And that offense is definitely an example with all the weapons. Bobby, how do you feel? I think last time I saw anything come out from you with regards to this offense, it wasn't the biggest confidence for Locke. Am I right?
So I'm pretty sure I've become known on Twitter as president of the anti-Locke fan club. We've talked about this pretty much ad nauseum on our show, so I won't go too much into it. But I'm not a big believer. I haven't been a big believer from his college days. And I think that people, as much as they want to say it's something else, I think people are getting excited by the fact that he won some games as a rookie, but that doesn't really matter for fantasy. His fantasy stats were not great. And I see him as being possibly a good, actual, real NFL quarterback, like a game manager type, but not good for fantasy purposes. And because of that, I'm not really all that interested in anyone that's not named Judy or Sutton. And even with Judy and Sutton both being there, I'm a little skeptical of that offense on the whole.
Dan, we've talked about this offense a couple times. Right now, Fant going. I know Matt mentioned tight end 7 on FFPC. When I'm looking at where he's going right now, he's at a tight end 10. So he's in that range. You know, like Matt said, he's on the back end of those tight end 1s. Dan, for you, is he in the H's, as you call it? Is he in that H zone? Because I kind of feel like he is, no?
He's below the H zone for me. Bobby and I are wearing the same pair of jorts here. I don't have a lot of faith in Locke. I think he's a little bit overrated for fantasy, the same as Bobby does. All those all those weapons there that he's got to choose from. I'm just not sure that offense can stay on schedule enough to get the long drives it's going to take to really generate the amount of targets it would take for Fant to pay off that price. If Fant was going at, tight end 13, 14, something like that, I'd be all over it. But at tight end 7, no, hard pass.
And I don't mind him at tight end 10, honestly. I mean, the article might flip over to the breakout side if we're going to classify it as a top 10 tight end, because he had a 16.7% target share last year. Like I said, I think that is probably going to drop with the addition of Judy and the other guys there. But that's kind of the threshold that I found in terms of target share. It was about 17.5% of the team's targets. And if you weren't getting that, then you were having a really tough time finishing as a top 6. But as a top 10, sure. I mean, I don't have as much of a problem with that, I guess.
Fair. Yeah, I've talked about it. Fant is a guy I was selling this offseason. Not that confident in Locke, similar to Bobby. And again, because he's kind of in that back end of the tight end 1, the way I approach the position, as I've mentioned many times, is I'm trying to hit one of those monsters at the top. And if I don't, I'm going to pair up, 2 or 3 guys in the Ian Thomas, Jonnu Smith range, past the H's, as Dan likes to say. So nice little tight end combo. Let's jump into an offense that maybe the optimism isn't necessarily there, but one of their main weapons, the optimism is definitely there. And Bobby feels that that's no reason to shy away. Why don't you talk about your boy F1?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen, since this article has come out, apparently it's been like into hype Terry McLaurin. So I'm glad that I did it before it really became in fashion. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm a trendsetter. I'm not saying I'm not a trendsetter, but I've heard people talk about, like, I literally saw a tweet today that was like, it's really in fashion to hype up Terry McLaurin, but at the same time, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. I'm still going to tell you to do it anyway. Like, they were calling out everyone else for hyping him up, but still saying they were going to do it anyway. So I've written this article. It's a series now, and it didn't initially start as a series, but the past 3 years I've now written this article called Buying High on a Young Receiver. And the premise isn't that difficult to grasp. It's that when these young receivers have a good rookie season, and I recognize that McLaurin is not as young as the other 2 I highlighted, but when they have a good season, if they have a good sophomore season, they actually go way up in ADP. It's just a trend because we tend to overvalue youth, rightly or wrongly. So the 2 guys that I wrote about before was Juju Smith-Schuster after his rookie season and DJ Moore after his rookie season. And both times people are like, oh, they're kind of pricey for how much production I think I'm going to get out of them. But if at that time you spent, like, let's call it 1.5 first, both have jumped to 2 first or even 3 first for DJ Moore. So just showing that there is some value you can squeeze out of these young receivers still by buying in, even if it seems like you're quote unquote late. And with Terry McLaurin, so as you said, Washington has all kinds of things going on, including a new name. And currently they're going by the Washington football team, super creative there. And I did just want to highlight, though, that McLaurin got to 900 receiving yards as a rookie when he was playing with Case Keenum, Colt McCoy, and Dwayne Haskins. And the other players in the last 10 years to get to 900 receiving yards as a rookie are Odell Beckham, Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper, AJ Green, AJ Brown, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Kelvin Benjamin, Sammy Watkins, Mike Williams, Julio Jones, McLaurin, Schuster, and Metcalf. So outside of really Benjamin and Watkins, you can say that all of those guys have either become fantasy studs or are on their way to becoming fantasy studs. So it's a pretty good company to find yourself in. And if you listen to, I don't know if it was our most recent episode of Superflex. I believe it was the second most recent, right, Matt, where we talked about Haskins. That was with Russell Clay,
sure.
I believe. So if you listen to that episode, you'll hear Russell and Matt talk about how they still have some faith in Haskins. And what's really interesting, actually, is if you look at the splits, everyone got kind of down on McLaurin towards the end of the season last year because he started off really hot and then kind of cooled once Haskins starting, which was surprising because they worked together in college. But the splits show a totally different story, which is more or less that he was the same exact player as he was with McCoy and Keenan. McCoy and Keenum. He just scored less touchdowns. So if he can get in the red zone a bit more and do what he just did with Haskins, we'll be loving on him. If Haskins improves at all, which I think is a great possibility, then McLaurin will also zoom up the ADP, even if he was a little bit older on the rookie side.
Yeah, this guy, like his first 6 weeks, he was a wide receiver 20%. Like his first 3 weeks, he went 23 points, 17 points, 19 points. Like he came out like gangbusters. Matt, are you on board with F1? Is he someone that you were maybe buying when he was at a lower price? He's going about wide receiver 19 when I'm looking at FFPC startups right now. What are your thoughts on the receiver out in Washington?
Yeah, Washington was a team for a long time. It was just an organization where I felt if I just avoided every player from that team, I'd be just fine. We can throw in, some other teams in there too, I think. But I kind of do like what they're doing now. I like Ron Rivera. He's kind of turned around or at least maintained some level of success for every league, every team he's coached. So I like all that. I like that. McLaurin is definitely going to be the alpha there. I do take a little bit of umbrage with the fact that he's a young receiver. He's young in terms of being a second-year player, but he's going to be 25 in September, which is not young for a second-year receiver at all. So I think he's good. I think tight end 19 is is pretty perfect price. So I don't know if I would really necessarily be buying him at this time. I do think there's enough questions still with that team in general that while he's going to get certainly going to get the targets, he's probably going to, I would guess, be in that 120 plus target range this year, depending on if Haskins can take over that job. And I mean, for me, that's another concern. We've talked to death. Ryan McDowell, in fact, put out a tweet today about, hey, have you guys heard that COVID situation might affect the development of rookies? And Haskins isn't a rookie, but a full off season as the starter would have been very beneficial to him, I think. So he's not going to get that, but he does already have that, again, that chemistry back from college with McLaurin. So I like all that. I just think he's appropriately priced, and I'm not opposed to buying him. But if somebody came along that was really, excited to have him as a top end wide receiver too, I think I'd probably be okay selling at that point. Anywhere like a early to mid first, it would definitely get me to get off of McLaurin pretty easily, I think.
Yeah, Dan, I feel like we've done a couple startups together on the FFPC, and just in drafts overall, I feel like he always just goes just ahead of where I want to grab him. Right. How do you feel about him? I know Geis is a guy we like in that offense. Is F1 a guy that you've been buying or that you're interested in right now at his price?
I'm kind of on the fence with McLaurin just because of the fact that he, as Matt pointed out, he is a little bit older than most second-year players. And also the fact that he's really kind of the only game in town right now, and I don't expect that to continue long-term. As far as receivers, who else does Washington really have? It's hard to envision that they're going to allow that to continue. I mean, they've even made noise about signing Antonio Brown. And what would that do to McLaurin? I like a lot of things about McLaurin. I like the fact that he's a hardcore football player. He studies all the time. I mean, he's one of those gamers. And I never mind having those kind of guys on my team, guys who just love the game of football and they're constantly studying it. They're constantly looking for ways to improve. And that's everything that McLaurin's about. So I'd never sell low on him. But, if somebody wanted to offer me a really high price for McLaurin, I probably would take that high price.
Getting attacked by fruit flies over here.
Why are there flies in here?
Yeah. See my frog tongue just like. So, what they call French people frogs? Isn't that a thing?
Yeah,
you might know that. So I actually forgot to ask Matt if you had to compare Fant to an animal, what animal would you compare him to?
Oh, man, I actually did not prepare for this, so come back to me and I'll have one for you by the end of the show.
Bobby, do you have one for F1? Does he remind you of a specific animal?
It could be. So I actually didn't, but it could be because you were just talking about frogs. But I'm going to say that he is a frog, and particularly like one that you hear in the dead of night. That's just, especially because, so he's Scary Terry, right? Or F1, as some people like to call him. So he's one you hear in the dead of night, just like croaking. And if you're a fly, you're terrified because Scary Terry the frog is coming for you. And if you're a wide receiver who's like kind of on the edge of being a wide receiver too, but you're on the older side, he's about to leapfrog you. So you're definitely afraid of him too.
I like it. That was a good one.
Bobby, frogs are not scary. Okay. Frogs aren't scary, buddy.
Listen, if you are in the dark,
I was going to say, he did specify it was in the dark.
If you're in the dark by yourself, pretty much any noise that you don't expect is terrifying. I stand by it.
All right. Well, okay. We need to remember that we can't talk to Bobby about animals and terrifying because, he's self-admitted terrified of all animals. So
if it's not a puppy, it's scary pretty much.
There you go.
Matt, I'm just checking in. You come up with anything or should I go to the next?
Let's come back to it.
Okay.
I'm checking some things out.
All right, Dan, we've talked about this site, the FFPC, man. They got 2 huge tournaments right now, $500,000. I know we've all been cooped up. We're starting to get a little loose. We hopefully we're putting our masks on, but we're heading out there, getting social a little bit, keeping distance, but trying to let loose a bit. And what better way to plan than a live draft in Vegas? Dan, you know all about these. We actually met down in Vegas at one of these a couple of years ago. It's just a ton of fun. You can do these online and you can do them live. But why don't you give the people a bit of a picture of that live event out there in Vegas?
Yeah, there's really nothing like it. I mean, it's just an event from start to finish. There are people that are, we're doing some drafting on even, Wednesday night, Thursday, during the day before the first game even happens. And then on Thursday night, there's a big viewing party. And, they have this giant TV screen that's just like floor to ceiling in one of the convention rooms. And, everybody's there, just a great place to network and get to know a lot of fellow fantasy fanatics. And then you get into the drafts and they're just like nothing else because you're sitting around the table with 11 other people. And it's a live draft, just like it was, when you very first started with fantasy football, probably, with a bunch of your friends. But, now you're playing for, basically $500,000. So it's very intense and it's a lot more fun when you can look your competitors in the eye rather than just kind of, be in the same chat room or whatever with them. And you make a lot of friends. I mean, I went down there, I think 4 or 5 years ago for the first time. I knew nobody basically. Now I go down there and it's like,
cheers.
It's kind of constantly talking to people. It's just, friends after friends, I'm watching the games with people that I really enjoy hanging with. And it's just a ton of fun. I mean, if you go down there, you'll be hooked. You'll be going down there every year.
You just reminded me, Dan, that Thursday night party was New England, KC, and that's when Kareem Hunt made his introduction to the NFL. And I just remember the live drafts the next day on the Friday. He was going 101, 102 in those startups, like, the 1250 buy-ins, those big ass buy-ins. People were just like, all right, I'm going Kareem Hunt, baby.
Oh, that was funny because, we had the big auction in the morning right after that, the $2,500 auction. And me and one of my very good friends who also is in that auction, and he and I are, like our biggest rivals too. We were bidding up Kareem Hunt, and it was like who blinks first on that one, and it was insane. We do the loser was going to get who was the top running back besides that at that
Zeke
year.
Was there.
Yeah, Zeke. So it was like you had. It was like one of us was getting Kareem, the other one was getting Zeke, and everybody else was just kind of watching on the sidelines because we decided already that, if I was going to beat Jack or if he was going to beat me, you had to have one of those two players. So it was good fun. And we were playing each other that week, so there was a lot on the line. Whoever got Kareem Hunt his 50 points, was almost guaranteed to get that win against, your biggest rival. So ton of fun with that.
Yeah, they're a ton of fun. And like I said, if you can't make it to Vegas, you're still a little hesitant to travel, you can still do it live from your own home, from the comfort of your home. Like I said, guys, $500,000, you're playing fantasy football. And there's the football players championship, the football guys, and they've got their main event. So 2 tournaments, 2 different price points. And don't forget the best balls, the dynasties, literally any type of fantasy you want to play against the best right here at myffpc.com. So check it out. Guys, we're gonna jump out of the market really quick just because we are on a bit of a schedule. And we have like a couple, some trades, some things to talk about. And Matt, I know you mentioned, I was saying earlier, you and I are in Pigs 3 together, and we chatted a few times in the DMs, and it took me a while to put 2 and 2 together, that it was like, the Matt Price that the voice that I knew, and I was trying to remember the other day if we actually got a trade done when we were talking about tight ends, or did I end up getting that done with Tyler?
I think I don't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure we didn't. I pulled up all the trades I've made this offseason, and I don't see one from us, but I know we had, quite a bit of discussion about it.
Yeah. That Pigs League is definitely an interesting one. So why don't you start it off? You said you made a lot of moves this offseason, and Pigs is definitely an interesting league with the settings and so on. Why don't you throw one out there for us?
Yeah, I made a bunch of trades this offseason. I was the startup did not. Well, I thought it was going to go real great, but I typically will build my teams, especially in a league like this, very, very top heavy. And when you have injuries or 1 or 2 of your players in your startup that you're counting on doesn't quite work out. Thanks a lot, Rob Gronkowski. It can be bad. So I basically went into rebuild mode last year, and I acquired just a ton of picks. I think I had 5 or 6 sets of picks, and this is a bankroll league. If you guys aren't aware, basically you and it's an auction league. So you get these draft picks, they convert to auction dollars, and they roll over each year. It's not like your rookie auction, you use it or you lose it. This money rolls over year to year. And there's a decent amount of inflation in these leagues. Scott has been trying to fix it with taxation and a bunch of other stuff. So just because you have a first round draft pick in an auction league does not, or say you have the 101 in terms of draft picks that converts to auction money, you're probably not going to get the 101 player for that one pick. So you need a lot of picks. So that's what I did. I acquired, I think, 5 or 6 sets of full sets of picks. I also had Christian McCaffrey was kind of my own piece. And to get some of those picks, I moved McCaffrey for Elliott and a full set of 2021 picks. And then the big move of the season was with John Bosch. I kind of gave basically 2 full sets of picks. So a first, second, third, fourth, and fifth for 2021, and Gerald Everett, and picked up Alvin Kamara and George Kittle. So I paired those guys with Ezekiel Elliott, basically moved McCaffrey to get Zeke, Kamara, and Kittle the way it all worked out. So I liked those 2 trades quite a bit. And I was able to pick up another quarterback, another running back later on throughout. Obviously picked up Devontae Adams later for Ridley and Hunter Henry. So all of a sudden kind of went from a team that was rebuilding to a team that I think is one of the stronger teams in the league. Hopefully we have a 2020 season so we can see it play out. But I feel like this team is pretty much turned on its head from where it was this time last offseason.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun league, and you have so many different options on how you can, I came in and it was a dispersal draft, just two teams, two of us that were kind of, bidding on these guys. And similar to you, just went top heavy, got like Mahomes, like pieces like that, and then picked up guys when they were cheap and they've built in value. But I like what you did there. Like you said, that because of the action in this league and the way the settings are, you can rebuild quickly, which I love those type of leagues. Those are my favorite type of leagues. So a lot of different moves that Matt made there. I'm going to go to one of our, sorry, I'm getting attacked by the fruit flies here. Best Damn Dynasty, at Best Damn Dynasty. He sends us on the reg. Bobby, I'm going to go to you first. 12-team PPR Superflex. Time to cash in on the peak Zeke. So the one side is Zeke and Deontay Johnson. The other side, 2 mid, 21 first, Debo and Monty.
Honestly, that seems about right, but it also seems like he's maybe selling a little bit low. Just because I think if you waited until, I agree. I'm not saying it's not time to sell Zeke. I do think it's time to sell Zeke, but I think the time to do it is in season when he's dominating, and you probably could have gotten a little bit more for him. I do like Debo, but after the Liz Frank injury, you do have to be at least a little bit worried about Debo going forward, and also just the additions they made to that offense. The first obviously have some chance of hitting, some chance of not, but they're at least insulated in value. And I know a lot of people, I personally am not, but I know a lot of people are pretty high on Deontay Johnson. So it just seems like by including him, like the package should have just been the package for Zeke alone. By including Deontay, it does make it seem like you're losing a little bit of value overall in that deal.
Dan, how do you feel about this trade? It's pretty big trade right now on Twitter. It's pretty even, like 52 to 47%.
Yeah, so it just in a vacuum, I'd lean towards the 2 picks in Debo and Monty over Zeke and Deontay. I've never been the hugest Zeke fan, so that definitely weighs into it a little bit. I'm always a little bit concerned about his off-field antics and what goes on with that. And on the field, he's a creature of volume, which is great because the Cowboys keep giving him that volume, and that's fantastic as long as it lasts. But I do feel like it is about time to sell Zeke. I do agree with Bobby that probably you could get a little bit more in season, and especially once people start talking a little bit more about the fact that, Zeke has already had COVID and, people talk about his immunity and all that kind of stuff. I mean, these kind of things are going to matter. So, I do think it's a little bit the wrong time to sell. But if you are selling them now, I think it's a great price. I'd feel very comfortable getting that for Zeke and Deontay. And, also like Bobby, I may be a little bit more of a Deontay fan than him. I think he's got a good shot. I like what I've seen from Deontay, but a lot of people are trying to comp him to Antonio Brown, and it's just way, 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 way too soon for that. He's got a long way to go to get to that level. Let's see him beat, a force with a healthy Juju, a healthy Ben, healthy James Washington, a healthy Connor. There's a lot of weapons in that offense, so you got to wonder exactly what is Deontay's share of it going to be. So for that reason, I love the price.
Matt, how do you feel about this? It's pretty big move. There's some decent pieces, significant pieces involved here.
Yeah, it might be a cop-out, I guess, but the only way I'm making this deal if I'm the Zeke owner is if I am not competing at all in 2020. I mean, maybe it's a hedge on that there's not going to be a 2020 season. If that's the case, that's great too. Mm-hmm. But I think I realize it's time to sell Zeke. We're getting to the end of that first contract, or I guess we already at the end of the first. He signed the big contract, right? So yeah, so he's we've had. In recent years had not had a lot of success holding on to those guys, whether it's Todd Gurley or David Johnson or what have you. But That offensive line is still one of the best in the NFL. That passing offense is maybe the best in the NFL now with those 3 receivers adding CeeDee Lamb this year. I just don't think there's any way you can stack the box against Ezekiel Elliott and hope to be able to defend that passing offense. So I think there's a chance that this is as good as Zeke has been. I think there's definitely a chance that he has his best season ever this year, and in which case I still think you're going to be able to sell him again for a similar price in 2021. Now there's obviously the risk that if he doesn't live up to that, or we don't have a season and he's just another year older, then you lose some value there. But I want nothing to do with David Montgomery. I think he's purely a volume play. I don't think he's talented enough to physically talented enough to be a difference maker at the position for us. He's to me, he's a little bit quicker version and going to have the same role basically as Jordan Howard, which again is fine, but he's not going to be somebody who's ever going to jump up in value, really, I don't think. And then Debo, I like Debo, but I don't think he's really necessarily the alpha there, and maybe they just don't have that alpha yet. Maybe they'll never have the alpha there. But I think you're potentially giving up the 2 pieces in this deal that will increase the most in value. Obviously, those picks are very nice, but if I'm competing this year, and that's really my goal in every league, every year, honestly, then I'm not going to give up Zeke and a chance at a title for a couple of first round picks and 2 players that I'm not super jazzed about.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? Is what you're doing with Zeke. Like for me, Debo and those 21 firsts, it's a good time to buy them right now. Especially if you believe that Debo can be the stud out in that San Fran offense. Monty, I think it's just, do you believe him in him or not? He's going to get volume, obviously. I think his ceiling is really capped. But Zeke is the big piece. And the question is, do you sell Zeke in his package or not? I don't know that I would sell him now, like you guys outlined. Wait till he's crushing, because that Dallas offense should be bulldozing, especially early in the season, and Zeke will be a big part of that. So maybe you sell him when he's rolling in that sense. So I love the way you guys broke this down. Like I said, 53% in the favor of the Debo Monty side, 46.7% on the side of Zeke. Bobby, did you have a trade or anything that you brought with you today, your show and tell?
I didn't have a trade, but I have made trades in the offseason I can talk about. So one of them was similar to what Matt was talking about. I'm in a 14-team auction league called Wreck Bobby, so named by John Bosch because we didn't have a name for the league, and he went,
such a narcissist, Bobby.
Yeah, so let's call it the Wreck Bobby League, and the champion is called the Wrecker of Bobby. I made a trade where it was actually my first auction startup that I did, not coming in, having taken over a team. And I didn't do that well in the startup. And I sold off a bunch of pieces. And I traded a bunch of rookie money for Baker Mayfield because I really needed a quarterback. And I was happy at the price I got him, which was about $400. Just to give you guys an idea, the year before, Kyler Murray went for about 600 something in the rookie auction. And it was this season, Joe Burrow went for, I think, 700 something. So I basically got Baker Mayfield for $300 less than Joe Burrow went for. And I had rookie money to spend and ended up with a bunch of good pieces, even though I had the third most money. I got Swift, for example. I got Taylor, who was the main takeaway, and I needed some running backs too. And just some other pieces that I was pretty happy to get. And depth, I'm sure you guys know this, but depth is key in 14 teams. And so I'm very happy to have come away with, I actually now have, oddly enough, I ended up winning Justin Herbert too. I more or less was trying to redline the other guy because I thought he was going too cheap and I won him. So I now have 4 starting quarterbacks after not having like any. So I'll probably try to trade one of them away, but I can't get anyone to pay me anything for Matthew Stafford. I don't know if you guys have had success moving Stafford, or I'm probably just going to have to wait until in season to try to move him, because I will not move my boy Daniel Jones, Dan, because he is winning me that George bet.
Steak.
You're gonna make me look up where I bought. I can't remember if I bought or sold Stafford, but I know I recently did it. But Dan, while I look it up, do you have anything to add? Or do you
by the way, that's also my only Daniel Jones share. So that's why I will not.
I heard you say that.
That makes sense. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be moving him if that's your only one, for sure. It surprises me that you just can't move Stafford for that much in a superflex. I mean, we did a couple of startups, JD and I, and Stafford was kind of right up there with, he went not long after Matt Ryan and all that. I mean, I know he's 35 years old, 34, something like that. And, but I mean, quarterbacks are playing to 38, 39, 40. How long is your window? By the time you have to worry about Stafford's age, he's going to be off your team probably. So
he's only 32. Also, he's
32.
Wow, forever. He's only 32 though. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so see, there you go. He's only, I'm thinking he's 35. He's 32. So he's got years and years in front of him. And he might be getting out of Detroit after this year, and that might be the best thing for him. So I have a lot of interest in Stafford. If Bobby's
Dan, do you want to take over one of the teams in my 14 team so I can trade with you? Because I have Daniel Jones,
just
Baker
for
Mayfield.
One day I could take over that team, and then
yeah. So I have Jones,
the deal for
Mayfield, Herbert, and Stafford, and I want to trade Stafford because my team is.
I'll give you 5 first for him.
Perfect. That's all I needed.
So I found the move. It was actually with Jerry, our fellow goat Jerry over at Dynasty Warzone, and I sent him Lamar Jackson, Michael Gallup, and a third for Stafford, Nick Chubb, Adam Thielen, 2021 second, 2021 second.
That's a lot to digest.
I didn't see anyone writing it down, so I didn't expect much back.
I honestly just heard you say you traded Lamar Jackson, and my brain just went, why? If it's a super flex, my brain literally just went, why?
Yeah.
It's all good. It's a fun league we're in there. So Dan, did you have a trade, or do you want me to share one of my recent ones from a couple days ago?
Yeah, I don't have anything like super recent. I don't remember if we ever got around to talking about this one before. The last one I made in the GOAT Leagues was about 6 weeks ago. I finally got out from under Lev Bell, who had been looking to get out from under for, like almost since I acquired him. But I got I gave up Lev Bell and Jacoby Myers for Darren Waller. This is not a tight end premium, but I still feel pretty strongly that Waller is going to be a big part of that offense in Las Vegas. So and just being able to get out from Lev Bell was like a breath of fresh air. I'm guessing you guys think I probably undersold Bell a little bit, but let me have it. What do you think?
Matt, I'll let you go first. Bobby's like, I'll let Bobby go a second. He's he wants to pile on Dan, so we'll let you go first. Little appetizer before Dan gets the meal.
Can you tell me the other pieces one more time? I'm so sorry. I was
so it was
I finalizing my animal for Noah Fant for you.
Oh, okay. Yes, we got to get back to that. So we have Lev Bell and Jacoby Myers for Darren Waller.
I think it's fine. If you need a running back too, there's no reason not to just, ride Bell out. He's certainly going to get the volume. Waller scares me a little bit, just because he's a 1-year guy and they've added a bunch of weapons. But if you need a tight end, I don't think the value is off at all. I'm totally fine with that deal. Jacoby Myers is, whatever. Maybe he hits, but he's probably not. So
yeah,
I think that's fine. Yeah.
Bobby, I know you were like chomping at the bit. So what's your take?
Champion.
Not really. It's more just I had a startup this year, and I'm trying to pull it up real quick. Of course, the transaction history is not showing up, but all I know is I got Bell like incredibly late as my RB3, and I'm kind of with Dan that you should be selling, just because I don't believe in Gase, and I don't really believe in the Jets offense, which makes me feel really bad for Sam Darnold. Hopefully he can survive Gase and get an actual coach. That said, Darnold didn't really play a full season, so maybe he opens things up for Bell a bit by playing a full season, hopefully. I'm not a big Waller guy. Maybe that's why I was making a face, because it's just hard for me to buy into these. And I know tight ends take a while to break out, but basically Waller was like we talked about Antonio Brown already, but Waller was the Antonio Brown thing didn't work out. Now we're left with nothing. All right, might as well try throwing to this guy. Oh, he can catch? Great. Okay, but now we're going to bring in Henry Ruggs. We're going to bring in Bowden. We're going to bring in, all these guys that, at least in this draft class, a lot of people liked. And there's also just the fact that as accurate as he is, Derek Carr is still Waller's quarterback. And I know he did well last year, but if you think that Ruggs gets some volume, I just see it taking away pretty drastically from Waller. So while I'm all in on selling Bell if you can, I just don't know if Waller's the price I'd be looking at unless you're in like, I'm sure, I know both of you guys, I believe, are in the Trade Addicts leagues with the 1.75 tight end premium. If that's the case, 100% sell Bell for Waller. If it's not the case, I wouldn't do it personally.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not a Waller guy and I'm not a Bell guy, but just based on what is out there in Fantasyland right now, I'd probably make the move Dan made and I'd sell Waller before the season starts. And I feel like that stock goes down a bit. So I like the move for Dan. I know Dan likes Waller, so I'm not going to fault him for the move. I love the move.
I mean, I'm not as huge on Waller as some people are, but I do think he's going to have a nice early season role, and that's kind of my thought is to roll him over after a few games. So
yeah, to Dan's point, the whole COVID situation could make it so that the rookies don't get as involved as we think they might, and Waller retains a lot of his role.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah. Good one. See, Dan he just always has that stuff I just don't even see, like those fruit flies. So just two really quick one that I made before we close this thing out. Same league, very active league. One of them was with Swag, our boy Shane. He offered me this. I just accepted it because he's asking for Cephas, Quintez Cephas, who Dan and I, our buddy Noah Riddell is a fan of, and I understand the upside, but I got him at 4.11, and he offered me Larry Fitz and a third, 2021 third, so it was just easy accept for me.
Smash accept.
Yeah. And
I had no idea where we were going with this. When you begin to trade with, I was talking about Quintez Cephas. I was like, so they gave you some waiver money. Like, where are we going with this?
But it's just, sometimes you get a gift, that every once in a while. And I like those. It's a little trade, but
getting Larry Fitzgerald for Cephas is insane. I know Fitzgerald is old and whatever, but that's just insane.
Well, and a 2021 third too.
Yeah. Oh, I have to pay you on top of this for this guy that probably belongs on the waiver wire.
Shane, I love you, buddy.
Do not talk bad about Quintez Cephas. We can fight about that if you want some other time.
He's got opportunity, man. That's for sure out there in Detroit. But so the other little move in here with my boy Nate at Nathan_Pilmer, fellow GOAT, he sent me my boy Fuller, who I'm crushing on right now, and a third for Ryan Fitzpatrick and a second. And I'm loaded at quarterback. I've got a million quarterbacks. So that's why I'm kind of moving Fitz while he's still got a leg left. You guys have any thoughts on that?
My thought is you're making me regret having sold Fitzpatrick for a third round pick, thinking, okay, I'm getting out on this guy because I'm getting whatever I can before Tua replaces him. And here you are getting Will Fuller for him. I'm clearly doing something wrong.
Why would you want to sell that which can never die? I mean, Fitzpatrick he keeps coming back more often than like a Friday the 13th movie or something like that. I mean, you keep thinking, okay, it's finally I killed it. I ended this thing, or the long nightmare is over. And then here comes Freddie again. It's like this guy just keeps popping up on new teams or keeps popping up on the same team. I mean, you just can't keep him down. He's just, no matter what you do to Ryan Fitzpatrick, he is going to come up and he's going to start. That's all there is to it. That's all you need to know.
And he's going to do it again on another team. There's no way. He's not, right?
Yeah, totally.
He's definitely going to do it. He's definitely going to do it again.
Totally. Matt, you have anything to add on that, or?
No, I like that a lot. I don't know how it's really going to shake out between Fuller and Brandon Cooks necessarily. We typically don't like having wide receivers. Their first year on a new team, they tend to drop off. But I don't think we can necessarily count Cooks in that. We had I think it was three 1,000 yard seasons for four different, or the other way, 4 1,000 yard seasons in a row for the 3 different teams, something like that. So he has shown that the ability to jump in on a new team and grasp the playbook, I guess, right away and gel. And obviously he has a great quarterback there. So both of them obviously have their concerns. I think 5 concussions for Fuller, for Brandon Cooks, and we know the deal with Fuller's injury history, but you can't deny the chemistry and the rapport that they clearly have together, Fuller and Deshaun Watson. So it'll be really interesting to see how that offense works out, because then they have Stills too, another deep threat who I think he can do a little bit more underneath than the other two can. They're stacked for that deep ball this year, and it'll be interesting to see how they work out. And I like Fuller as a buy. Now, I was very anti Fuller coming out. I didn't really like his hands. His skill set seemed pretty limited. But where he's going now in terms of price in the 7th, 8th round, something like that, I think that's a much more palatable price than we were paying even just last year.
Yeah, and that's kind of it, right? That's where his price is, Bobby.
I was just gonna say, to Matt's point, I've always loved Brandon Cooks. He was one of my first dynasty rookie drafts picks, and since then I've just kind of been in love with him. And this offseason I bought him for like a bunch of mid-seconds, which I'm pretty happy with, because if he emerges as Deshaun Watson's top guy, that's going to just make that price boom. And I also have a ton of Fuller. So one way or another, I think I'm going to be happy, but watch them both get hurt and it be still show.
Yeah, that would hurt Dan and I, because we're loving both of those guys at their price right now.
And I just need to let JD know that I do own Fuller in the OG, and he is available. So
all right,
come at me, bro.
We'll have to talk, brother. So Matt Price, like I said, man, one of my favorite voices, probably one that I've listened to longer than most, and I appreciate you coming on tonight, man. You're now one of my favorite dudes and one of my favorite league mates, because we have some pretty good convos in that pig chat. So I know you've got your animal ready. So before you remind the people where to find you and all that good stuff, tell us your Noah Fant animal. And I got one more thing to add to that. We do something called OTC over here. I'm going to give you Noah Fant or Waller. Which way are you going to go?
Oh, geez. I think just on age, I would go Fant there. But for 2020 alone, probably Waller, to be honest with you. And for the animal, I am picking a milk snake. That sounds weird, I know, but there are these animals that mimic other animals that kind of make themselves look bigger and scarier than they really are. So Bobby would probably be fooled by this snake too. I don't know if you've ever heard of a coral snake before, but they're very prevalent in more tropical places. When I lived in Florida, they were a concern there. Very venomous snake, and the way you kind of know you're looking at a coral snake is there's a rhyme. You might have heard of red, yellow, kill a fellow. If you see red touching yellow, then it's a coral snake, the dangerous one. But milk snakes, they mimic them, and they have red next to black. So friend of Jack is the saying. So Fant is really harmless, but he's mimicking a dangerous tight end for 2020. So he's a milk snake.
Wow, that was awesome to learn. I just gotta say,
I'm blown away. I'm thoroughly impressed.
That is awesome.
I'm very self-deprecating because I'm not as afraid of animals as I make it out to be. But Matt did pick the one animal that I'm legitimately terrified of. Snakes is like, I will freeze up if I see a snake, or if you even mention there's a snake in the same area as me.
Bobby, remind the people where they can find your goodness, and we appreciate you coming back, brother.
Yeah, of course. So you can find both Matt and I on the Superflex pod, which we've referred to a few times. That's at Superflex, ZOOPER Flex. And you can find my work when I write. Lately, I haven't had as much time as I'd like. Dynasty League football. And as always, you can find me on Rec Fantasy on Twitter. That's REKEV Fantasy. And despite what I was talking about earlier with that league, I'm not a Twitter tough guy, as much as John Bosch would like to sell you that false narrative.
I was going to say earlier that move I made with Fitz, John Bosch is a guy that trained me a bit on pairing up picks with pieces that you want to move. And that's kind of where that Fitzpatrick move came from. So shout out to John Bosch with that. Dan, we're glad to have you back, brother, as we do on the weekly. I mean, the guests tonight were just blowing it up. And with the info, remind the people where to find you and anything else you want to share before we close it out.
Yeah, we are on a roll with guests, aren't we, man? It's just incredible. So thank you guys for being on. I am at Overhyped Sleeper. Drop the final E from Sleeper, and I am ready for the season to start. I mean, I'm ready for any sports. I'm going to be watching baseball tomorrow night. God dang it! So
you got a thumbs up from Bobby.
I mean, come on, man. It's like, let's get some sports going here, and football is the number one sport. I'm going on record. I'm going to say we're going to have a full season of NFL. So there you have it.
I love it. I love the optimism. Yeah, guys, thanks for coming on. At Matt Price FF, at Bobby Koch. Find these guys and their goodness on DLF and on Zookeepers. Or on Zookeepers. See, I did it again. On Superflex. And we appreciate you guys tuning in and sharing the goodness with us on the weekly. Make sure you go to myffpc.com for all the goodness with regards to the best site to play fantasy. Tag us on your trades, man, whether it's at Overhyped Sleeper, no E on the end, at Goat District, hashtag always be trading. If you're on the Instagram, as the IG, as the kids call it these days, the IG, it's Goat District FF. You can find trades, all kinds of stuff on there, man. Keep wearing your mask, try to keep it safe, keep it kosher. Please wear those masks and be safe, be happy, and we'll check you all later.
You forgot to say that they could find pictures of Dan in his shorts on your IG as well.
We gotta get a Twitter handle for that.
Yeah.
like the chair, like the
Potathon chair. Yeah.
I just had to come in super confident because I'm not gonna lie, the trade for DeAndre Hopkins after we made that bet was just a killer.
Yeah.
So now I just need to hype myself.
I forgot that happened
like,
after. That's hilarious. I totally forgot about that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I still like the, I still like the basis of your thought process on the bet that Kyler is a little bit overrated and Daniel Jones is a little bit underrated. And, I think in a lot of ways that still stands. So, I don't feel like this is an absolute done deal or anything like that. I mean, I think there's, I've got a lot to be worried about. You got a lot to be worried about. So
all I know is Bill O'Brien got a call from Dan, and it was like, "Hey, man, can you sell DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals so I don't have to wear these shorts?" And he was like, "That's right, I got you."
See, I feel
for David Johnson so that you can win this bet.
Daniel Jones for me became a serious value as soon as the schedule came out, because everyone's like, "Oh my God, they got the hardest schedule, I was like, this was like back in, I don't even know, like 3 months ago or something. It's like, how do you know, man?
See, here's the thing. I thought if they didn't get Hopkins, they were going to go out and draft somebody like CeeDee Lamb. To be honest, so I felt like there was help on the way, one way or the other, but. Getting Hopkins was definitely, when you can get a player of that caliber and magnitude versus somebody who's never played it down in the NFL. I mean, what a massive upgrade.
Maybe I just have my finger on the pulse, but every time I've written about someone recently, they've risen in ADP. I'm just saying. Terry McLaurin was like wide receiver 24. Now you're telling me he's 19. Daniel Jones was like QB like 18 or something, and now he's like 13. I don't know, guys.
In the high stakes circles, they're right on exactly the same track as you are, Bobby, with both of those players.
All I'm hearing is I should take all my money from this job, Dan, and invest in the high stakes leagues.
That's exactly it.
Come join us.
But
I'm sure your wife won't mind one little bit. It'll be fine.
No, it's not like we're about to close on a house on Monday and need like every single dollar.
But I gotta jump over to the other pod, guys. But thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt.
Come on anytime. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man, we'll have you back. Thanks a lot, brother.
See you.
Yeah, I gotta head out too, guys. But this was fun.
Thanks a lot, Bobby.
Yep. Thanks, Bobby.
All right, Dan, I'm gonna end this, but stay on for a sec.
All right.